The story began when Sophia, a 33-year-old American architect from Portland, accepted an invitation from an international nonprofit to participate in a project aimed at improving the living conditions of a tribal community in rural Montana. Restless in her stalled career and with a love life as barren as a desert highway, she craved something different, something to shake her soul awake. Wearing a simple white linen blouse, camera slung over her shoulder and design plans rolled under one arm, she made her way alone to the heart of the Bitterroot Range, where the Hawk River tribe lived near a secluded wildlife reserve. Her presence stirred quiet fascination among the tribe, but none more intensely than two brothers, Jamal and Amir. Jamal, the elder at 28, was a seasoned hunter, tall, sculpted, eyes like molten flint. There was something primal and aggressive in his stance. Amir, 26, was more slender, an apprentice healer with a gentle, almost haunting kindness behind his quiet eyes. When they saw Sophia, they were captivated by her essence. Fragile yet unyielding, aloof yet magnetic. She was unlike any woman they had ever known. That evening, the tribe hosted a welcome ceremony. Fires cracked, drums throbbed in the darkness, and Sophia was invited to join the dance. At first, she hesitated, unsure, but as the rhythm consumed the air, she let go. Her hips swayed with unpracticed grace, sweat beating down her collarbone and soaking her thin shirt, firelight tracing the curves of her silhouette. Jamal and Amir stood apart from the crowd, watching her every move, like wolves under a full moon. After the celebration, Jamal approached first, bold and direct in his rough English. "You like it here?" he asked. Sophia smiled and nodded. Amir stepped forward quietly, offering her a small wooden cup filled with homemade honey wine. She sipped. It was strong and sweet, burning its way down. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes sparkled, and something electric passed between the three of them, an invisible thread pulling tight. Over the next few days, Sophia immersed herself in her work. She'd unroll her plans across the dry ground, and the brothers were always there, ready to help. Jamal would bring her water, his calloused fingers brushing against hers just a little too long. It sent tiny sparks dancing across her skin. Amir would sit beside her in the evenings, telling her ancient tribal stories in a voice that wrapped around her like velvet, his eyes never straying from her face. She started to feel it. Their interest wasn't just polite hospitality anymore. One day, Jamal took her deep into the forest to collect wood. Suddenly, he turned and trapped her gently against a towering pine. His voice was low, his breath thick with the musk of earth and sweat. "You're like the moon," he said. "We both want you." Sophia's heart thundered. She didn't move. From behind the tree, Amir appeared. His face was conflicted, but his voice was calm. "Jamal speaks true, but we won't fight. We can share." The words slammed into her like a drumbeat. Share? 2 men? 1 woman? Her modern mind buckled under the idea. And yet, her body betrayed her. That night, she dreamt of the brothers, Jamal's raw intensity and Amir's silken affection. She awoke tangled in sweat and confusion. From then on, something shifted. When Jamal was near, she slowed her steps just enough for their shoulders to touch. When Amir spoke, she leaned closer, letting her hair brush his arm. Was it calculated? She wasn't sure. The elders noticed. They called the three together and presented an unexpected proposal. According to their traditions, brothers could marry the same woman to keep the family and bloodline united. At first, Sophia was stunned. But when she looked into the eyes of Jamal and Amir, and listened to the wild drumming of her own heart, she nodded, lost in a trance she could no longer deny. 3 days later, they were married in a ceremony that was raw, fiery, and sacred. Sophia stood barefoot in tribal garb, flanked by both men as the shaman marked their foreheads with blood and earth. In that moment, she wasn't just an outsider from Oregon. She was a woman reborn in ritual and longing. That night, the tent held only a single bed of tanned hides. The air was thick with the sense of crushed herbs and anticipation. Jamal moved first, his hands rough and possessive, his mouth fierce with hunger. Amir whispered in her ear, his fingers delicate along her spine. She trembled beneath the weight of two contrasting flames. She had crossed a line she could never uncross, and yet she had never felt more alive. Their union became legend within the tribe, and whispered scandal beyond it. Sophia tried to drown the chaos in her architectural work, but each night, when she lay between Jamal's dominance and Amir's tenderness, she felt a satisfaction deeper than anything she'd ever known. But passion soon gave way to tension. Jamal grew jealous of Sophia's time alone with Amir. Amir resented Jamal's forcefulness. Their arguments escalated. During one heated exchange, Jamal struck Amir. Sophia, caught between their love and their fury, broke down in tears. Doubt crept in like a winter fog. Back in Portland, her friends discovered the truth. Someone had leaked her story online. The headline was brutal. American architect in tribal love triangle. One wife, two brothers. The internet erupted. Some called her shameless, others brave. But Sophia couldn't explain the tangled truth of her emotions to a world that saw only scandal. Even within the tribe, cracks began to show. Younger members were curious, inspired. But the elders whispered. She was a curse, a breaker of old ways. The storm finally hit, literally and figuratively, on a night where thunder tore the sky apart. Jamal and Amir's conflict reached its peak. Accusations flew. Jamal accused Amir of stealing Sophia's heart. Amir shouted that Jamal never tried to understand hers. And between them, Sophia stood trembling, trapped in the eye of a hurricane she never meant to summon. Thunder cracked overhead as Sophia finally snapped. Bursting from the tent, she stood in the open downpour, rain slicing down her face like cold steel. "I'm not your property," she screamed, her voice raw and trembling. For the first time, she saw her reflection in this relationship, and it terrified her. Somewhere along the way, she had lost herself. She turned to leave, heart pounding, but Jamal grabbed her roughly by the arm. "You're not going anywhere," he growled, dragging her back toward the tent. Amir tried to intervene, placing himself between them, but Jamal shoved him violently to the ground. In the chaos, Sophia's fingers closed around a ceremonial dagger on the table. Without thinking, she drove it into Jamal's arm. Blood spilled instantly. While he roared in pain, she broke free and ran into the forest, into the shadows and storm, the dagger still clutched in her trembling hand. Behind her echoed the furious howls of both brothers, but she didn't look back. She ran, stumbling, through mud and thorn, the rain washing Jamal's blood from her skin. Her bare feet sliced open on sharp stones. Pain made her feel real again, alive, free. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she had to get away, away from that suffocating tent, from those burning, consuming stairs. The forest was a blur of shadows, trees swaying like ghostly sentinels in the storm. She pressed herself against a thick trunk, gasping for air, her soaked clothes clinging to every trembling curve. Rain streaked her cheeks, mingling with tears. "What am I doing?" she whispered, hollow and broken. In that moment, she was both prey and predator, victim and creator of her own undoing. That night, she curled up under a thicket, surrounded by the haunting howls of wild beasts and the groans of wind through the trees. She tried to clear her mind, but it betrayed her with memory after memory. Jamal's rough, claiming hands, Amir's soothing, addictive voice, the nights tangled in both. They filled her with shame and longing all at once. She covered her face as if it could block the heat rising through her body, ghosts of their touch refusing to leave her skin. At 33, she'd never imagined herself spiraling into such a forbidden entanglement. Now she was alone, an exiled soul in the wilds of America's forgotten frontier. When dawn broke, the rain subsided. Exhausted, she forced her aching body onward. She knew she couldn't return to the tribe, nor could she face the judgment waiting back in Portland. For 2 days, she wandered the forest, surviving off berries and stream water. On the third, fate threw her a lifeline. She stumbled upon a small caravan headed inland, traders hauling supplies to remote settlements. Their leader was a rugged middle-aged man named Al, with dark eyes, a thick beard, and a wry intelligence in his gaze. He saw Sophia's desperation at once. "You lost?" he asked in broken English. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, got separated from my group." Al looked her over. Mud-soaked clothes, tangled hair, haunted eyes. He didn't press further. Just handed her a bottle of water and a scrap of dry bread. She ate in silence. The caravan was headed to a dusty little town called Copper Bend. Sophia joined them, riding in the rattling bed of an old truck. Every pothole jostled her into uneasy sleep. Al would glance back at her from time to time, his eyes unreadable, occasionally lingering a little too long. When they arrived, she spent her last few dollars on clean clothes and a night in a weathered roadside inn. Standing in front of the cracked mirror, she barely recognized herself. Gaunt cheeks, dark circles under her eyes. Who was she now? The bold designer from Portland? Or the woman who once shared a bed with two tribal brothers? She pulled out her phone. The signal was weak, but strong enough to pull up the headlines. Her story had gone viral, and not in a good way. Some claimed she'd been kidnapped by tribal men. Others insisted she had willingly degraded herself. Even old photos of her had been twisted into vulgar memes. Her fingers trembled as she shut off the phone. Her chest ached not just with fear but heartbreak. The next morning Al found her again. He offered her a cup of some harsh local liquor and said, "You're no regular traveler. I see it in your eyes. There's a story there." Sophia looked up, startled. But his gaze held no malice. Just something warm, something gentle. She drank. The burn in her throat matched the ache in her soul. Finally, she whispered, "I ran away." Al didn't ask more. He simply placed a strong hand on her shoulder. "Nobody here cares about your past. If you want to stay, you're welcome." His hand lingered a little too long, but she didn't pull away. In the days that followed, Sophia found a strange rhythm in Copper Bend. She used her design skills to help Al repair his trucks in exchange for meals and shelter. He began giving her little gestures of kindness, a drink while she worked, a brush of his fingers across hers. At night, he invited her to share a drink beneath the stars. Slowly, cautiously, he moved closer. Al wasn't like Jamal or Amir. He didn't smolder or seduce. His touch was mature, calm, steady, like the last log tossed onto a dying fire. One night, drunk and worn down by everything, he leaned in close and murmured, "A woman like you shouldn't be alone." His breath stirred the hair by her ear. Sophia meant to push him away, but instead her eyes fluttered closed. Faces filled her mind, Jamal's, Amir's, now Al's. A new triangle, quieter and perhaps no less dangerous. Her resistance melted under the weight of liquor, exhaustion, and the need to be touched. Al's kiss was rough, tasting of tobacco and whiskey, but it filled an empty space in her chest for just a moment. Meanwhile, Jamal and Amir had not stopped searching. Jamal now bore a deep scar where she had stabbed him. He called it a mark, proof she had belonged to him. He vowed to find her, to bring her home. And Amir carried her memory in silence. But in the quiet shadows of the tribe, he was already preparing to follow. Amir worked in silence, applying herbs to the deep wound on Jamal's arm. But the silence was deceptive. His heart was a battlefield. Love and resentment twisted together in a storm of emotions toward Sophia. Part of him still longed to shield her. Another part wanted to punish her for breaking them both. Determined, the two brothers gathered a small group of young men from their tribe who could speak English and followed Sophia's trail to Copper Bend. They set up camp just outside town. Jamal stood with clenched teeth, seething. "She's ours. No one's taking her away." Amir murmured, "She's not a thing. She gets to choose." Their bond began to fracture, the divide between them growing deeper by the day. But one thing remained unchanged. Sophia had become an inseparable thread in both of their lives. Meanwhile, Sophia had found a fragile sense of normalcy with Al. She kept her head down, working with him, sleeping soundly for the first time in weeks. But deep down, She knew it was only a matter of time before her past came knocking. It did. One afternoon, at the market, she caught sight of a tall, broad figure in the distance. Her heart seized Jamal. She ducked behind the crowd, but Amir stepped in from the other side and grabbed her wrist. His expression was conflicted. "Did you really think you could run?" She tried to pull away, but his grip held firm. That's when Al appeared, stepping in between them. His voice was cold, protective. "She's with me now." Jamal heard it and charged in. The three men stood in a tense triangle at the center of the market. Crowds gathered. Whispers swelled. The air thickened with tension. Jamal threw the first punch. Al swung back, and fists flew. Blood splattered across the dusty ground. Amir tried to pull them apart, but Jamal elbowed him in the chest, sending him crashing to the dirt. He looked up at Sophia with pain in his eyes. She stood frozen, tears clouding her vision. This chaos, it was all rooted in her. But she had no idea how to end it. Then someone in the crowd shouted, "That woman is a disgrace." The words stabbed into her chest like a dagger. She turned and ran, the voices behind her fading like smoke in the wind. That night, Sophia sat alone on a rock at the edge of town. The lights in the distance blurred through her tears. She thought of home, of Portland, of her cozy studio, her old life, how far away it all felt. She pulled out her phone and recorded a short video. Her voice was soft and raw. "My name is Sofia Garcia. I don't know what I did wrong, but I know I can't keep running." She sent the video to an old friend, turned off her phone, and stood up. She walked into the night. The wind rolled in from the plains, carrying the dry scent of American soil and brushing through her tangled hair. That video, just a whisper, a confession, sailed into the digital sea. Meanwhile, she drifted like a solitary boat in fate's current, unable to see any shore. She didn't turn back to witness the aftermath of the fight. She didn't want to see Jamal's rage, Amir's heartbreak, or Al's bruises. She just wanted to find a place where her soul could finally breathe, if only for a moment. Her feet ached, her body cried for rest, but she kept moving, not knowing where she was going, just away. But she knew, no matter how far she walked, the shadows of those three men would follow, etched into her like scars. Back in Copper Bend, the market had not quieted after her departure. The fight raged on. Jamal, fueled by fury, overpowered Al with a hunter's strength, landing a brutal punch to the jaw. Blood streamed from Al's mouth, staining the dirt. Still, Al refused to fall. He growled through his teeth, "She's not yours." Jamal raised his fist again, but Amir tackled him, arms locked tight. Sweat pouring down his face, Amir roared, "Stop! She's gone. Why are you still fighting?" Jamal threw him off with a snarl. "She left because of your weakness." Amir clutched his chest, eyes dark with something unreadable. He didn't argue. He simply turned away, staring toward the road Sophia had taken. The crowd thinned. Dust and silence settled like ash around the three men. Sophia walked through the night, until sunrise bathed the world in gold. She emerged from the trees into a vast open plain. In the distance, giraffes moved with slow elegance. The sky blushed with the light of morning. She sat on a flat rock, nearly collapsing from exhaustion. Pulling a water bottle from her bag, she drank a small sip. The cold trickle slid down her throat, but did nothing to soothe the wildfire in her chest. She thought back to where it all began, her first night by the fire, the tingling anticipation when Jamal and Amir touched her hand for the first time. She had believed she could control it, that their wild love was an exotic game she could master. But she was wrong. She hadn't been the master of this story. She'd been the pawn. Her eyes closed. Memories surged. Jamal's fierce kisses, Amir's gentle whispers. That wedding night, both of them tangled in her arms. Her body trembled at the memory, torn between guilt and longing. Then, from across the plain, a dust cloud approached. A rugged SUV stopped in front of her. A man stepped out, wearing a khaki shirt and sunglasses. His voice was clear, American. "Are you Sofia Garcia?" She blinked. nodded slowly. He removed his sunglasses, revealing a face lined with experience and concern. I'm from Future Vision. Your video went viral. We've been looking for you. Sophia's heart slammed against her ribs. She hadn't expected this, not now. That offhand confession Sophia had recorded, just a quiet plea in the night, spread across the internet like wildfire. The man from Future Vision handed her a bottle of water and said, "Your story has exploded. Some think you're a victim. Others think you've lost your mind. We need to bring you back and get the truth out." Sophia gave a tired, bitter smile and muttered, "The truth? I don't even know what it is anymore." The man said nothing more. He simply motioned for her to get in the vehicle. She hesitated for a long moment, but then climbed in. They drove toward the port city of Dar es Salaam. Sophia sat in the back seat, her face turned toward the window, but her mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. She knew the moment she returned to the city, her secrets would be exposed. All of it. The nights laced with ambiguity, the forbidden entanglements, the raw desires, would be dissected and devoured by the public eye. She leaned back in the seat, closing her eyes. In the silence of the moving car, she could almost hear Jamal's roar, Amir's whisper, Ayel's lips tasting of smoke and liquor. She opened her eyes suddenly and asked, "What if I don't go back?" The man looked at her through the rearview mirror. His voice was calm, flat. "Then you'll face the consequences alone." Sophia fell quiet, her gaze drifting toward the blurry horizon. Meanwhile, her video had sparked a firestorm online. Her friends in Portland were stunned. Some called her family. Others scrambled to track her down. The media pounced, headlines becoming more sensational by the hour. Portland designer vanishes in wilderness love triangle. Forbidden romance or breakdown abroad? Even her old design work resurfaced. Once hailed as visionary, now twisted into symbols of indulgence and scandal. Her parents, heartbroken, begged her to come home. But she couldn't explain herself. She didn't have the words. Back in the tribe, Jamal and Amir also heard the news from a young tribesman who could read English. Jamal's rage erupted. He shattered a clay pot and growled, "She's ours. Let anyone try to speak against her, and I'll silence them myself." But Amir sat quietly, holding a necklace Sophia had once left behind. He stared at it and whispered, "She doesn't belong to anyone." Eventually, Sophia was taken to a hotel in Dar es Salaam, where Future Vision arranged a press conference. She stood in front of the mirror in a crisp, clean suit, trying to summon the confident architect she used to be. But the woman who stared back had empty eyes, like a stranger playing dress-up. The press room was packed. Cameras flashed. Microphones jutted forward like weapons. "Is it true you married 2 men?" one voice asked. "Were you coerced?" came another. Sophia inhaled shakily. "No," she said, voice trembling. "It wasn't forced. I chose it." Gasps rippled across the room. She continued, barely above a whisper. "But I don't know if it was love or madness." Her words shattered the last wall holding back the flood. Some called her shameless. Others praised her courage. Sophia lowered her head, silent, as tears spilled down her cheeks. And then, like a scene from a dream, Jamal and Amir appeared at the entrance, dust-covered and surrounded by their tribesmen. Jamal stormed forward, grabbing her arm. "You can't leave us." Amir followed, his face pained but resolute. "Before you go, at least give us an answer." Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, voices shouting. Sophia's heart twisted as she looked at them both. She pulled her arm from Jamal's grip, turned to Amir and said, "I can't give you an answer, because I don't even know what I want." At that moment, Al entered too, pushing through the chaos. "She doesn't belong to you anymore," he said coldly. Their eyes clashed in the center of the room. Jamal, Amir, Al. Sparks in a storm. And then Sophia turned. She shoved past them all and ran, out of the conference room, out of the hotel, barefoot across the sand. She reached the beach and stood at the edge, the wind whipping her hair, the waves crashing at her feet. She looked out at the endless ocean, Flashes of memory flickered in her mind like a reel of film. The glowing nights of Portland, the firelit dances in the tribe, Jamal's fury, Amir's tenderness, Ael's silent longing. She laughed suddenly, deep, breathless laughter that turned into tears. She didn't know whether she'd won or lost, whether she was free or more trapped than ever. She stripped off her coat and tossed it into the sea, then stepped forward, deeper and deeper into the water. It was cold, shocking, but brought a strange serenity. She didn't stop until the waves rose to her shoulders. Days later, a blurry video surfaced online, recorded by a passerby. It showed a woman, alone, walking steadily into the ocean, vanishing into the horizon. Some said she had taken her own life. Others claimed she was cleansing herself to begin again. Jamal and Amir returned to the tribe. The wound between them never healed. They never spoke her name again. Al continued his trade routes, but on lonely nights, after a few too many drinks, he would curse quietly, the woman who had stolen into his heart and vanished like a dream. And so, the story of Sofia Garcia drifted through the internet and the world, an unresolved legend woven with taboo, tangled passion, and a haunting ambiguity that refused to fade.